All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2022 edition of Logic Apps Live. We have been absent for a little while, but we're back and with a larger team than ever before. So, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on where you are. So, like I said, the team is growing, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to give you a quick intro to the new members of the team. Slava, who unfortunately can't be here with us today, he's at the airport, is the GPM for Logic Apps. So Slava will be obviously leading the group of PMs working on Azure Logic Apps, but also working on the bigger Azure Integration Service strategy. A little bit background, Slava asked me to tell you he actually came from Meta and worked on a lot of the Kubernetes technologies before he joined Microsoft. So really excited to see the containerization and running a Logic App on the cloud, on the edge capabilities, and see what interesting things we'll be able to do with that expertise in the team. Also, Slava actually worked on the API management product before its acquisition by Microsoft a long time ago. So again, excited and looking forward to see a lot of the interesting integrations and capabilities that we'll be able to build, bringing the two services closer than ever, give you a more optimized experience using both together in a seamless way. And we also have Wagner and Kent that you see here with me on the call. So I will hand it over to Wagner first to give you a quick intro.
Hey everyone, so Wagner Silveira, calling here from New Zealand. Long time fan of Logic Apps, and a lot of you know, right? I've been posting and talking about Logic Apps before a lot, and joined the team in January 2022. So we'll be focusing a lot on the local development experience, the DevOps, and helping direct with the developer relationship. So those are the areas that are going to be focused a lot of this next 6 months, 1 year. Really, really excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the team. All the feature requests Wagner sent to us before he joined the team now is back to him to work on. So
at least we got the sub connector before I joined, because that's what my thing to glory, right? That I put it there and we actually get that running.
Awesome. Again, welcome to the team, and over to you, Ken.
Sure, thanks, Derek. And hi everyone. My name's Kent Weir. I recently joined the Logic Apps team. I guess it was mid-March. I came from the Power Platform side of Microsoft, so spent a lot of time on RPA and Power Automate over there. And then obviously before, I spent a lot of time in this integration community working on Azure Logic Apps and BizTalk Server in energy scenarios. So pumped to be back contributing in this area, working with this community, and really looking forward to my time here on the Logic Apps team. I'll really be focused on our enterprise integration strategy, also our hybrid offerings. So very much excited to be back in the fold, and pumped to be on Logic Apps Live here. I used to watch it all of the time, so it's great to be on this side of the camera.
Awesome. And again, welcome to the team. And obviously you have some familiar face here with me. I have Divya and Parth, who's also from the PM team. All right, let's keep moving. So first we'll start with talking about what's new and what's coming. Before I do that, so let's keep the chat active, right, and live. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, or if you just want to say hi to everyone and let us know where you are dialing in from, so feel free to do that. And we'll get to the Q&A session towards the end of the live stream for any questions that you may have. So let's talk about what's new. I think I may hand it over to you, Divya, to talk about the connectors first.
Yeah, let's start with connectors. With Logic App Standard, we have managed connector support, which you are familiar and you have been using it with consumption and ICE for a while. So you have access to all those connectors in Logic App Standard. Apart from that, we also have a new connector model, which allows you to run connectors within the same VNet And since they all run on your compute with Logic Apps Engine, you get better performance characteristics with those connectors. So those are the ones we call as built-in connectors, and we are actively working to add more and more connectors into this category that run within the Logic Apps runtime. Here are some of the ones which have been recently released: Blob, Table Storage, SFTP, FTP, and we do have a lot more that are in the pipeline, of course. Over to
Awesome.
you, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing about built-in connector is obviously it runs along with the Logic App runtime. That means if your Logic App runtime, the Logic App standard resource is inside a virtual network, then these connectors will be able to access the same resource without you having to do any additional configurations. It's obviously faster because it is just alongside with the engine. So a lot of the benefits. So definitely check that out. Next one is SQL storage provider. So this is the ability to allow you to use SQL to store all the runtime states for Logic App Engine, right? So as your Logic App executes, the action execution results, the input and output, rather than storing that in a blob storage, you can put that into SQL. So it may be the case that you already have an existing investment into a SQL installation that you want to have the data live there to give you more visibility into what the backend is doing, give you even analytics experiences so that you can build on top of these raw data. But potentially also, if you're running Logic Apps on-prem, on the edge, or in a disconnected fashion, SQL is another way to allow the runtime to continue functioning. So that is public preview, like we said here. If you haven't given it a try, please do check that out. Next one is authentication and authorization for Easy Auth. I'm actually going to hand it over to Kent to talk about that really quick.
Sure. So this one's pretty cool. So naturally, whenever people expose an HTTP trigger, they have some concerns about that SAS token that's used to actually secure the specific endpoint. And naturally, we can leverage API management to protect our Logic apps, but if that's not available to you, you also have this new Easy Auth configuration. And this really allows you to enforce Azure Active Directory authentication and authorization on your trigger itself. And so it's a pretty cool way of being able to add that extra level of authentication. Because it's based on Azure AD, you can also use conditional access, and it really just gives you more capabilities, more options when it comes to securing your endpoint. So it's pretty cool. We've seen something similar on consumption, but now we've got that same capability inside of standard, which is great to see.
Yep. Yeah, this feature, I think we added to consumption SKU a few years back, and it was actually quite heavily used by especially enterprise customers, and it was one of the feature gap when we first introduced standard. But now the gap is gone, so give that a try if that is a requirement for you. And Parth, over to you to talk about tasks.
Thanks, Eric. So yeah, this one's interesting because it's, again, overall strengthening our AIS, Azure Integration Services story. Recently, we came up with replication templates, so be able to move messages from service bus namespaces in and from also to event hubs. So there are basically templates that allow you to enable this replication. So the main use case for this is for customers to avoid disaster recovery and loss of data during that time. So your business will be continuously flowing with all the particular needs met from the messaging downstream services. So these templates are live right now, so please give it a try. And more importantly, we also want to release more templates. So right now we have about like 10 templates in the repository. So there is a template upload UI through which you can contribute to the template repository. You don't quite have to write code for that as well. So if there's any Logic Apps consumption or standard that you want to export to automation task templates, please give us feedback on the UI as well. So there's that.
Awesome. Thanks, Parse. And export.
That with me. So now that we have Logic Apps standard and Logic Apps consumption, there is a lot of people that is going to be interested in migrating some of those workloads from consumption to standard. So we started to work on export experience to allow you to select those Logic Apps, making sure that what you have there fits into the standard tier, and help you to migrate that. So that option for the Logic Apps standard to that export experience is currently in private preview. If you're interested in take a look at that, reach out to me and we can get you enrolled. Right, we're going to be working a little bit more, fine tuning that experience, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah. Speaking of which, let's talk about what is coming. I think the first few are from me, so I will start. Designer improvement. This is an area that I focus on a lot. We did a big refresh of the Logic App Designer, changed completely how the canvas and how the panel works and looks like. But we are continuing our investment in this area. We're not just stopping there. We are working on a couple of things. We will be working on a new search and browse experience to really help you to better discover capabilities that exist in Logic Apps, help you to more easily add actions for things that you're looking for, or maybe you're not aware of, making recommendations and just being overall more intelligent about helping you to build your workflows. Performance is another big focus for us. So when I think about performance, is really spanning across the entire designer experience, right? From the time designer first loads, we want to make sure that is very fast. As you work on building your workflows, when you add an action, when you search for a connector, we want to make sure that experience is great. But also we want to make sure that whatever experience we design scales as your Logic App grow more and more complex, right? If you have 10 actions, it works great. If you have 50 actions, it works equally well. So something that we'll be working on. And there's a lot more to come. Designer is going to be always an area that we try to differentiate ourselves from the competitors. It's something that we hear loud and clear, something people value. So if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, if there's anything particular that you're looking for, do reach out to us and let us know. The next one that we are looking into, we're still in the pretty early stage, is the data mapping experience. Now, we do have a tool called Logic App Enterprise Integration Pack. That is a Visual Studio extension that allows you to author maps to define how the data should be translated from XML to XML, from flat file and vice versa. We're looking into potentially improving that experience, and we'll talk more in the subsequent slide. And hand over back to you, Wagner, to talk about what's coming up next with regards to export.
Yeah, so let's talk about export again. When the projects that we have in place right now for private preview is the ability to get one Logic App from consumption and move into Logic Apps standard, right? But we know that people that has environments where a lot of those Logic Apps are in place, or that you have environments like ICE, where you wanted to deal with that more as a group of message or of Logic Apps, might wanted a different experience. So the idea is grouping Logic Apps from consumption from ICE and exporting them together as an application instead of one by one. And that's the experience that again, that one is in early stages, like the data mapping. But we're probably going to be working on that and trying to put this experience together quite fast to pair up with the single export experience. So expect to hear more about that in future Logic App Lives as you progress that story.
Cool. And next one is availability zone. Parth, do you want to talk to that really quick?
Sure. So currently we are planning to go live for preview for consumption availability zones on May 2nd. That will enable you to be able to have consumption Logic Apps in about 4 or 5 regions that support availability zones that include connectors as well. We are also planning to preview the connectors for Logic App Standard in availability zones. Currently for Logic App Standard, the app itself is available in availability zones, so you could totally work with that. But that preview will be there in about 2 months, and Geo will follow that as well.
Awesome. So yeah, with the introduction of availability zone, we do have to introduce some additional compute behind the scene, which means new IP addresses. So you probably have gotten some emails about new IPs coming. If you do have any firewall rule that allows logic app specific calls to go through, make sure to take a look at that. We do have a doc on what are the new IPs that you will need to add to the list, so things continue to work. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be able to help you from there. CLI, we added a lot of CLIs for Logic App Standard a while back when it first became generally available. Right? You can deploy a Logic App Standard resource. You can do a lot of the operations there. But there is also the next level of CLI that we want to allow you to do things like operations on workflows and connectors. So that is coming as well. And over to you, Divya, to talk about more connector awesomeness.
All right. So I think this is a question we get all the time on what the connectors are coming, what the roadmap looks like. So here I want to share some of the connectors, specifically connectors that we are planning to bring in as built-in connectors for the next couple of months. So you should see these connectors. I've tried to put them in the order in which you should see them light up in the next 2 months, so in May and June. But later in the slides, I'll also share with you how we plan to stay connected with you and keep you informed of the connectors that are in the roadmap that are being released. So just going by the list, Azure Automation, Azure File is something that we are very close to releasing and you should expect them to be available soon. SQL connector, right now we have only one action. We've brought the SQL connector at 90% parity to all the actions we have today in the managed connector. So you should be able to see and use all these actions very soon. Trigger is something that will come a bit later. Key Vault connector is also planned to be released soon with the support for managed identity as well. We already have released FTP and SFTP connectors. Very soon, we'll also have the support for large files, so that you should be able to do file transfers for files for many gigabytes of files. We are also trying to build protocol-based connectors so that you can use these connectors to integrate to various applications, various systems. And one such connector in that spirit that we are releasing very soon is the JDBC connector. With this, any services, any applications or databases that support JDBC integration, you should be able to use this connector to connect to them. XSLT 2.0, 3.0 support is coming soon. So what we have today is XML transformation capabilities in Logic App Standard. That supports XSLT 1.0 today. The support for 2.0, 3.0, along with the support of assemblies in the maps is also planned and is coming very soon. If you are interested in getting hands-on to this sooner, then we release it. We have this in private preview as well, so feel free to reach out to any of us and we can share with you steps on how to get access to the private preview. And finally, SAP connector. So with SAP connector, our plan is to do multiple releases like we are doing with most of the connectors, starting with private preview. And I expect the SAP connector private preview to come later in the quarter. But if you are interested, please do sign up on the link that I'm sharing here, so that as we have more updates, we can stay connected with you and share the private bits with you as early as possible. Moving on, managed identity, we had released the support for managed identity for the managed connectors, both for Logic Apps consumption and Logic App Standard. This has been in preview for a while. We are very soon going to move to GA for managed identity support for managed connectors. And this does include the support for both system identity and user identity. Lastly, we are constantly working to expand Logic Apps globally to additional regions. And in the next couple of months, we will be taking Logic Apps to the regions that I've listed here. Norway West is pretty much complete and is going to be available very, very soon, after which we'll have all the other regions that I've highlighted here. Yeah, that's all for here.
Cool.
Derek, on to you.
Thanks, Divya. Kind of going through the comments before we go to the next slide. A couple comments on making the slide a little bigger. So hopefully that worked for you. My producer scale is a little rusty. We haven't done live stream in a little while, so thank you for your feedback, and we'll try to make it better next time. Let's see. There's a question. There's a feedback on favorite connectors. I think this is in the context of search and browse when adding an action. Definitely something that we're looking into. Can't quite find it. I think there. Sandra had one copied to my clipboard. Yes. Something we're looking into, both with mouse but also with keyboard. So we're looking into experiences where maybe, so you can already drag and drop, right? We actually improve that experience. We show you the drop target in a much better UI. But we're looking into like, hey, maybe you can press Control and drag, and now you're actually copying an action rather than moving it. Something that we are looking into. Let's see. Anything else that we want to cover really quick before we move forward?
There was a question if XSLT maps would, BizTalk XSLT maps would work. So the high level answer to that is yes. Like Logic App, when you moved BizTalk maps to Logic Apps consumption, you were able to use them for the most part. The same story will go with Logic App Standard as well, where you should be able to use the same maps in most cases. For the maps that have reference to custom code, custom assemblies, there may be some additional work that may be required, and we still are figuring out what that would look like. But in most cases, things should work.
Yeah.
And there was a question about the roadmap for the built-in connectors, and I know that we actively working on that one to publish. So expect some news on that one soon.
Awesome. Sandra has another one on variables. This is a pinpoint that we have heard quite a bit. If you need to create multiple variables, you need to have multiple actions, something that we can certainly look into. The backend code actually support declaring multiple variables in a single action, but we'll have to do some designer work to enable that experience. But as we work on improving the designer, that is something we can certainly look into. All right, let's keep moving. If you have any questions, feedback, or comments, please do put them into the chat and we'll get to them really quick. So let's talk about some top of mind, some of the things that the PM team and the overall Logic App team is working on. I will start. The first one is on data mapper. So we post this on our Twitter handle. If you missed it, we are running a survey on your usage of data mapping experiences, either the Logic App Enterprise Integration Pack or the BizTalk tool, or even some other third-party tools that you may use in some other capacities. So if you work with JSON, XML, flat file, or other file format, and you deal with like the translation, the transformation of these data using XSLT, using Liquid, or maybe some other technologies, we would really like to hear from you. So we want to learn kind of what you do, what are some of the use case scenarios, what are some of the pain points and features that you would like to have. So we'll be able to aggregate those feedbacks and potentially give you a much better experience as we work on it. So sign up link is aka.ms/DM survey, data mapper survey. So please do go there and fill it out. Should only take you 5 minutes. So really appreciate it if you can help us out. And over to you, Kent.
Sure. So as we think about moving workloads from BizTalk to Azure. We're looking for feedback from customers and partners about what are the resources that we can focus on that we should be prioritizing in order to help you on that journey itself. So once again, you're going to see a few surveys here, but posting a link to the survey itself. Would really appreciate if you fill this out or your customer fills this out where they've got BizTalk and they're interested in moving to Azure Integration Services. And we're really interested in how we can best service you and your customers on that journey. So go ahead and take a few minutes to populate that survey. That would be really appreciated.
All right, let's keep moving. I think we have another one that we are also rolling out. And I think that is from you, Divya, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So the next one is around EDI and B2B scenarios. I think I want to request all the customers here who are using B2B and EDI capabilities, not just in Logic Apps, but even on other platforms. We would love to hear from you. We are at a point where we are sort of giving integration account a complete makeover. We are also completely looking at how we can make our platform such that you don't need all the expertise that is usually required when building EDI-based applications. And therefore, we are revisiting how we enable not just the user experience, but overall platform capabilities to build these kind of integrations. Integration account is a key component today for our B2B story, for partner onboarding, artifact management, and therefore that's another area where we want to make sure that we simplify the life of customers as well as provide an experience that best meets your needs. So as part of that, we are actually in the middle of a user research and actively seeking feedback from the customers. So this is great timing for you or any of your clients who may be interested to sign up this form, the link that I have here, and then we can reach out to you and set up these user research studies to get your feedback and help us improve our product in that process. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Divya. And next one, I actually don't know who put in this slide, so.
That's me again. Do you think, Derek, we can increase the size?
You bet.
All right. Yeah, so I think this is an attempt for us to stay connected with you all, as well as to provide you the updates that you have always asked us for. I want to use our GitHub repo to basically do this bi-directional communication with the community, with our customers. And as part of that, we want to share the release notes with you. We'll probably try this out first with the connectors and see how it goes, and we can expand that further for all the Logic Apps features and capabilities. But customers are constantly, you all, as well as we have other customers who ask us for the roadmap for the connectors, and our plan is to publish the roadmap here on our repo. Upcoming connector, the highlighted category at the bottom, is where you should see the update pretty soon. We are working through it, so it's not yet out there. The other category that I want to highlight is the release notes. That is another area where we have customers who always want us to know what we have released, when it went out, so that we want this information again to be readily available, and we plan to put at least the connector release notes here so that you are constantly aware of what is going on, what is being released. And finally, if you have needs for new connectors, because that is also always coming up, I want to use this forum to basically do that as well, where feel free to share your inputs, your ideas on new connectors, and let's collaborate. Let's let's see what is the demand for this. Would like to see others also chime in with their requests, their asks. That would help us in our planning process. That would help us in our prioritization process as well. So really look forward to use this forum to better stay connected with you and to provide you updates that you are looking for from us.
Cool.
So stay tuned, and we should have more updates posted here pretty soon.
Okay, thank you, Divya. I just want to say 225 stars. Come on, we can have a little bit more, right? So if you haven't, make sure to star our repo and keep an eye on the release note and connector information. Now we're into the Q&A section. So, like I said, if you have any questions, feedback, or comments, put them into the chat and we'll try to get to them. Let's see, I think I saw one from Sandro. What is the, when will we have availability to run C# code inside Logic App, like an expression shape? This is, we're not actively planning on this at the moment. So what I would be curious to learn is, because we do have the ability for you to run JavaScript code, right? Is this mostly a preference that you like C# better than JavaScript, or is it some capabilities that is missing in JavaScript, or just easier in C#? So do let us know. And I think along this line, another highly requested language that people want to have is PowerShell, right? So that, like for example, if you're managing your Azure resources, that may be easier using the Azure RM commandlets to do so. So preference, cool. Yeah, we can certainly take that into consideration. And if anyone else also have a preference on language that they want to be able to do in the inline code shape or action, do let us know in the chat. Let's see. And folks, feel free to jump in and take any questions that you saw.
So on the ARC question from Paco, so nothing to report just yet. There's still a lot of investment that's happening in this area. We are doing some level of re-architecture, I'd say, in the background, but nothing to report just yet from this perspective. But as soon as we've got more predictability around our plans, we'll certainly share them. In the meantime, feel free to use Logic Apps for ARC to explore and from a POC perspective, but nothing to share from a production timeline or pricing at this time.
Ooh. I see there's a lot of sidebar discussions on BCDR, enterprise readiness, great conversation. I mean, I think one hope that we have with Logic App Standard is that it would allow more companies and enterprise to be able to use Logic App in scenarios previously not possible. So do let us know if you are doing these type of more mission critical workload with Logic App Standard, and if there's anything blocking you like the BCDR, do let us know as well so we can help prioritize that.
Yeah, on that, just want to add one more point. For BCDR, given that we now have support for availability zones, we want to understand what are the reasons or driving factors for you or for your customers to go with an active-active configuration and versus an active-passive configurations. So if you have any feedback on that, please do reach out to us and please share with us offline. That would really help us understand what are the reasons and what requirements we should keep in mind.
I saw a question, any plan to normalize tools for Logic Apps? At the moment, there is a mix between VS Code and Visual Studio. Yeah, that is true. It's something that we are aware and conscious of. the goal eventually is to have a consistent experience no matter which SKU of Logic app you're using. You can do it on VS Code, you can do it on Visual Studio, and not having to worry about installing 3 different extensions. It will take us a little bit to get there, but it's certainly something that we're looking into. We are working very closely with the functions team, obviously, because the Logic App standard experience on VS Code is built on top of Azure Function as extension using the Azure Function runtime, for example. On Visual Studio side, we're working with the team over there as well to make sure that we do have a proper engine that we can render our designer there in a performant way, because one of the pain points if you use our Visual Studio extension is that it can be rather slow. And there's some technical limitations that we're working through there as well.
On the question around SFTP and FTP connectors, they are in public preview. They do support the triggers and actions. And the support for GA will come in the next couple of months. We do want to support large message sizes for these connectors, and first we'll release that. And once we have that, then the next step would be to go for the GA.
Yeah, one thing we'd look at to decide whether a connector is GA ready is obviously we look at the usage, where we look at the failure rate, we look at the success rate. So use it a bunch and give us feedback so we can use that data to help us make that decision as well.
I think there's a question around how do we make sure that the replication task doesn't interfere with the active listener by Reza. So I think for that, what you need to do is enable topic replication. So there's multiple listeners or subscribers on the topic, and one of the subscriptions would be your consumer. So you could basically enable sending messages between the 2 topics, and while at the same time maintain your current active listener on the topic, without any sort of change or any effectiveness happening because of the replication task.
Divya, I think there's a follow-up question on the VNet support. I think it's for the FTP connector, if I'm guessing correctly.
Yeah.
Yes, so these are built-in connectors and will support direct VNet integration.
Yeah. Cool. Sandra has one on the ability to name connectors. I think you mean connections. So yes, you should take a look at the Logic App PM subscription. We have SQL 1 all the way to like high double digits. So we do feel the pain as we work on the designer improvements. This is something that we plan to get to allow you to actually name it the way you want.
And there's a follow-up question on the task replication part.
Yeah, it was just about,
so it's only working for topics, right?
So it actually works for queues as well, but the only thing with queues is that if you already have an active listener on the queue, we don't recommend setting up a replication task on it, because the replication task will interfere with that. The replication task moves the messages right from one destination to another. So that's why, the queue-to-queue replication is only when you really need to make sure that you need multiple replicas available in different regions, whereas for active passive or even active, I recommend using the topic to topic.
Yeah. And it's just fair to say that we're not trying to create this Service Bus feature of data replication, right? This is something that the Service Bus team is creating, but we're trying to alleviate some of those problems in the meantime with that task, with a template that can allow you to support that in some particular.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Wagner. So actually, the thing is, right now, there's only one way to enable the data replication through functions, and we wanted to provide a codeless way to do it through Logic Apps. In the meantime, while the Service Bus teams and Event Hub teams are planning on releasing a built-in feature by next year that will enable data replication between, the services.
Good. Let's see. Any other questions I want to get to? Reza has one, an article on what features of Azure Function Premium which don't work in Logic App would be great. So curious about what you are discovering. From my perspective, Logic App obviously runs on top of the function runtime, but that is really an implementation detail, right? That we're more than happy to share, because I think that shine a lot of light on why certain things work the way it does, right? Like, why do you need to do func start when you debug your Logic App locally in VS Code, for example? But it's an implementation detail at the end of the day. So there could be something that works in Functions Premium that doesn't work here. Obviously, everything that you can do in Logic App doesn't exist in Function Premium. So
yeah. So he follow up with some of the specifics, like his lots finite triggers, right? At the elastic scale. I think some of those are things that we are tracking. And looking on the story.
Yeah, we actually enabled slots. I think at the beginning there were some issues when you do the swap. So there's some work for us to do there. Elastic scale should work. Curious about what didn't for you. So do feel free to reach out to us, and we can follow up there as well. All right. Wow, we're 40 minutes in. So obviously we don't have any demos to share with you today, and we thought this is going to be a short one, but there's a lot of good questions, so really appreciate that. I think we may wrap up pretty soon. Let's see. I think we do have a few more slides. So please do stay connected. Build is coming up towards the end of May. Curious about what kind of interactions would you like to have us during build, right? We used to run product group one-on-ones so that you can sign up and grab 30 minutes with one of us and have a deeper conversation. If that is something that you're interested in, do let us know in the chat or reach out to us via email. Or like with people like some sort of round tables, we can actually get together and share the success stories that we have all worked on in the past year. Do let us know. Give us some ideas and we'll have organized these things together. Integrate is coming mid-June. This is happening both in person as well as remotely. So a lot of good sessions from not only Logic Apps, but from our sister teams like Functions and API Management and Messaging and Power Platform are all going to be giving talks. So check that out as well. And Logic App Live. So this one that you're watching now, we will try to do this monthly to give you a more predictability, have a more regular cadence so that you can stay in touch and see what we are working on. So that is that. And I think the last slide I have is follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. This is where we post a lot of the new announcements and updates. YouTube, you're watching this right now, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And Logic Apps email at Microsoft.com is a way for us for you to reach out directly to us via email. So, and let's see, before we wrap up, any last minute questions that we want to get to? Divya, I think there's a question on flat file encode and decode, and it's GA readiness. Calendar year Q2, Q3.
Yeah, like we are working on extending some of the capabilities. Today, with flat file actions, you can use the artifacts within the scope of the app. We want to also provide the ability for you to leverage artifacts across the scope of an app through an integration account. So that is some work that is pending. And as Derek was mentioning, then we look at some of the criterias for GA readiness. And once we meet those criterias, then we move the connector to GA. So I expect like best case scenario to be end of Q2, but most likely I think that's going to happen in Q3.
Cool. Riza has a question on article explaining the single tenancy of logic apps from the architecture perspective, shared resource scale, and etc. Wagner, you have a blog post on this one recently, right?
The blog post that I have is more around how do you organize your logic apps, taking into consideration the now that you're working with a container that is the app server, the logic apps app, right? So how you can slice and dice. We talk a little bit about that. We have another blog post coming about the performance side, right? From what I understand, what Reza is looking for is more like a deep dive on how the logic apps is starting to leverage from runtime and what is the implications that we have there. I'll talk with the engineers to see if we have anything already in place in the multiple articles that we have. But on that note, if you're not subscribed to yet, take a look at the Azure integration or integration on Azure blog on tech community, right? I'll put a link to that on my Twitter later on, right? And or maybe post it here as well. There is a lot of really good posts being written by both the community and the people from Microsoft there.
Yep. Yeah, so definitely go check out tech community blogs. And we actually did, I did a Logic Apps talk with Rohita, one of the engineering manager working on the Logic App runtime when Logic App Standard first became available, talking about some of the design considerations and implications. So maybe now that we are about a year into Logic App Standard, we should do a follow-up and a little bit deeper into that topic and make it into a video format as well. So. But if you haven't taken a look at the first one, since you are already on our channel after the live stream, there is a playlist called Logic Apps Talk, and there's one on the new runtime. So make sure to take a look at that as well. Sandra has one. Please fix the expression text box. Yes, we are actively designing the new experience as we speak. So stay tuned. All right, we're almost 50 minutes into the live stream. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate you spending 50 minutes with us, kind of learning what's new, what's coming with Logic Apps. And like I said, please do keep connected and get in touch with us if you have any questions. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.